All right, here we are back for part three. We're going to talk about General Forbes, the guy that Forbes Road or Route 30 through Bedford is named after, and show you a little bit about him. We'll watch some clips on him. So, fall of 1758, the British are going to send another general over to see if he can go take Fort Duquesne, where Pittsburgh is, at the forks of the Ohio River. Okay, Fort Duquesne's the French-controlled fort there, and the British really want that because if you remember, if the British are able to take that, then the French have no option for places here in like western Pennsylvania to use the rivers as their transportation. And if the British are able to take that, they can pretty much drive the French out of North America at that point. So let's watch a couple little clips here on General Forbes, give you an idea who this guy was. Okay, so here we'll just start a little bit here.
General John Forbes, a determined Scotsman, will carve a road through the wilderness in a methodical way.
Starting at Philadelphia.
He will build a fort or staging post every 50 miles from Philadelphia to the forks of the Ohio. A strategy designed to avoid the fate that befell Braddock's army. But Forbes realizes that to conquer Fort Duquesne, he will need to do more than just march his army through the forest. He tries something no British general has done before. He makes diplomatic overtures to the Ohio Country Indians.
I desire to set a treaty on foot between the Shawnee, the Delaware, and the people of Pennsylvania to deprive the French of their friendship.
He will have to reverse decades of native bitterness over English duplicity. And he is seriously ill. General Forbes is determined to see Fort Duquesne fall before he dies. For help, Forbes turns to an unlikely ally, an eastern Delaware chief named Tediuscum.
Okay, so they say General Forbes was so sick most of this time here that they had two horses that would walk alongside of each other, and they had kind of like a big blanket tarp sort of thing draped between the two horses, and he would lay in there and be carried along. He got so sick he couldn't even like walk on his own for a lot of this that you're going to see about Forbes Road. So very sick. He doesn't make it very long after this whole thing goes down, and we'll see that. So this Tediuscum was a native. He was over 50 years old. He got converted to Christianity. He was baptized and stuff. He did that for a while. But then he starts realizing that more and more English people are just breaking their promises. They're coming. They're trying to take native lands away from him. And he turns back to war, and basically he's one who leads a bunch of like war parties and stuff of the natives around Pittsburgh and tries to drive the English out. But for a while, he's like a good ally to the British. So we're going to skip over some of that for the sake of time. Let's see if see where we're going to here now. So here's where he's going to attack some villages and things. But let's start seeing about Forbes Road. What goes on with that?
Different. Even as the diplomats do their work, General Forbes continues to cut his road through the woods toward Fort Duquesne. The dense forest isn't his only impediment. The young Virginia Colonel, George Washington.
Hey, take a look there, Fort Bedford. Okay. Originally, this thing was called Fort Raystown because our little town in the very beginning, when there was only a couple houses here and a trading post, was called Raystown. That's where the Raystown branch of the Juniata River comes from, the river that flows down by the fort. Okay. Fort Raystown, you're going to see when this thing was built here in 1758, why it was here, why General Forbes had these forts built. He wanted little supply posts every 50 miles along the way on his road to go take Fort Duquesne. So the fort that's there now, Fort Bedford, the big recreation, that thing was built in 1958, the 200th anniversary of its original building. And really wish we could have been in school because we were going to take a field trip up there. So if you ever get the chance, I think this summer a couple times they have some like free days where kids can go in for free. Go check it out. I mean, it might not be the most interesting thing in the world to you, but it's pretty cool. They've redone it on the inside, and things are more interesting, and just a lot of history right here in our backyard. So this is a couple of the times that George Washington was here in Bedford. Okay, so
He joined the army for the final push to conquer the forks of the Ohio. And Washington had his own ideas about the best route the British Army should take. Forbes plans to build his road west from Philadelphia, the shortest possible path. Whichever route it follows, Forbes's road will pave the way for a rush of traders and settlers to the Ohio country. Washington lobbies hard to get Forbes to change his plans, and instead follow General Braddock's southern route, which would favor Virginia. He doesn't hold back on his opinion of Forbes.
Okay, so Washington is a Virginia man. Back then it was all about like each colony for themselves. So he wanted them to build a road from Fort Cumberland and follow General Braddock's road, the dude that got killed during the Battle of the Monongahela, buried in the middle of the road. Okay, why? Because that would allow a lot of Virginia settlers to move up into the Ohio country that way. And Washington, we're going to see in a little bit, he's got a lot of money invested in that Ohio territory. He wants to be able to buy a lot of land out there so he can sell it off and make lots and lots of money. He's got big aspirations. Okay, so he doesn't like General Forbes very much. And Forbes doesn't like him because Forbes finds out that George is kind of like talking smack behind his back and stuff. So there's that part. So here's where they don't like each other very much. And we're going to move on to seeing more about Forbes Road. Okay?
And doesn't get his way. Forbes Road carves the path that will eventually become the Pennsylvania Turnpike.
Not necessarily true. Some of it from like Philadelphia to right about Shelburne, right past us. Okay, that a lot of it carries the path of the Pennsylvania Turnpike. But once you get to the foot of the mountains up there by Lake Shelburne to start going up over Route 30, it's not the Turnpike anymore. It's Route 30, Forbes Road, that runs right through Bedford. What's Pitt Street through Bedford, okay, and goes to Breezewood and then goes up through Shelburne and up over the mountain to Stoystown and stuff. Okay, that's what Forbes Road is today, is Route 30.
In the autumn of 1758, Forbes reaps the rewards of his diplomatic efforts. The colonists sign a historic treaty with several Indian nations. The Pennsylvanians pledge no new settlements west of the Allegheny Mountains.
Which they will break.
The Indians promise peace.
Which they will break.
Tediuscung is instrumental in bringing the sides together. In return, he is guaranteed thousands of acres for his people to build a farming community. Finally, peaceful coexistence with the white man seems within reach.
But it won't happen.
By November, Forbes's army is within 50 miles of the forks of the Ohio. They're at Ligonier, the jumping-off point for the final assault on Fort Duquesne.
Okay, so Ligonier is out where Idlewild Park is, and they have a really big fort there. It's like 2-3 times as big as Fort Bedford in Old Recreation, and it's really, really neat. If you ever get the chance, if you're ever going out to Idlewild or something, just stop in there for a little bit and check it out.
For the first time in 3 years, British scouts can now see the fort and try to gauge the enemy's strength.
All right, we're getting up around 10 minutes. We'll stop this here, and when we come back, we'll see a couple of different things. So that was part 3. We come back, we'll see if General Forbes is able to take Fort Duquesne and a couple other things here that deal with George Washington. Okay, that was part 3. Bye.